Leverage is a very key part of Masonry. And we think of moral relativism. They put the relative in the phrase. Raw generation, Mendel's law of dominance. Aphrodite was the goddess of love and beauty. So when liberals or anyone tries to get you to settle, women say don't judge her by her looks. When there's all these Greek societies and feminist psychologists who are attractive women, and they're working on behalf of the corporations, they sponsor them and give them jobs, it's very obvious to see what's going on. We have a lot of rich people who are Jabba the Hutt looking repulsive scum of the criminal class, as quite often they refer to themselves. And of course, they consider beauty. Love and beauty are connected. There's no way around that. And when they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, well, we are more common in that regard. We have more commonalities in that regard than one might think. In this age of brainwashing, at least, right? So, Mendel's law of dominance states that at times people can have dominant traits that express themselves. Also, there's a law of chance, which is really, the divine design, if you will. And scientists are trying to find ways around that, which include artificial insemination, transhumanism, eugenics, and ways to take the DNA from people like me and to inject it into your children to try to make them superior and to try to kind of predict what traits they will have more effectively and to, artificially design your children. And that goes back to the idea of a clone. Does a clone have your soul? If someone clones you, do they have your exact soul? No. For the same reason that if someone doesn't marry someone like me and fall in love with them and have a long-term relationship and make love and eventually have children and have a family, that they're not going to have the raw generation. They're going to have some kind of abomination. Satanic sects, the orders, the religious orders, the Jesuit orders, right? To martial. Well, why don't most people think about this? It's hidden in plain view. Martial art heroes in movies. Blade, The Prophecy of Eli with Denzel Washington, where we have these kind of super fast moving black martial artist heroes who are taking on people in a way that is hard to explain. Neo in The Matrix, right? He was a martial artist who woke up. Why did he become a great martial artist as part of waking up? And was it to put on a show, or was he applying the martial arts in actual combat? And of course, sparring shows the skills needed for actual combat. I think we all get that by now. For these reasons, cheaters never pro-spar and they never prosper. What is good stock? Think about the stock market and the occult companies. Remember, the O has to do with the divine reproductive cycle. So occult, first and foremost, is sex cults. It's related to sex cults. Occult activities, sex cults, cruelty, the Golden Dawn, the Hermetic orders, okay? Hermes and Aphrodite, Hermaphroditus, okay, which is the first couple of centuries, Hermes and his orders, which led up to the Council of Nicaea, okay? And that goes back to Paris as the one who kidnapped Helen of Troy. And so you have the Greeks and the Spartans who were pissed off. And that goes back to the movie 300, where Leonidas' wife tries to work the politics and prostitutes herself to no avail. It was symbolic of telling people, don't use your pussy power. You're not as smart as you think you are, you feminist bitch. But it goes over a lot of women's heads. They play into the hands of the elite, and they end up sleeping with them and losing all honor and spiritual power, quite often permanently, based on the trajectory of their lives and their inability to come into the masculine spirit of the sun, with all due respect. So we look at the grand patroness of Masonry, Queen Elizabeth, versus the patron of Neckin, Horus, no con. Okay, con go man. Take a look at this, if you will, for a second. I described this before the top part. I wrote in this a little bit earlier, this part. Okay, Ra in Congo, Niger, Congo, Congo, Ra in or rain. The Horus followers were the rainmakers, Eri Chuku. Basically, the Ezi Neri, from my understanding at this point, these were the leopard, worldly almost kings. They were worldly, but they were spiritual. The leopard spots were also symbolic of that. Their agility, their strategy, their martial arts systems, which included the scissor kicks, which you see in the movies a lot of times when they jump up, they do those scissor kicks and like flip a guy over or break their neck. This comes from Igbo martial arts. There's no earlier example of it. So, Uri Chuku, Eri, Ero Chuku, O-Ra Shuku, Kwa, sometimes it's Chuku spelled without the W, so you can get Ka. And of course, language has to do with line gauge. You know, Babylon, the Tower of Babel, you can kind of understand who's who by the languages, Afro-Asiatic languages. Cushitic, you know, is an Afro-Asiatic language. So is Egyptian, so is Berber. And this kind of Kush, you know, is kind of the sub-Saharan and upper Nile region, you know, Africans, black Africans in general. And so, you know, when you look at this thing and you look at how Ethiopians are part of the cosmology, the cosmogony, and the astronomy, astrology, and the history of the mysteries in Greece and the southern Mediterranean basin and so on. So when you look at this thing, the mystery schools make it so that if you see yourself for who you truly are, you turn to stone. Okay, you're not going to move at light speed or Godspeed. You're going to be stuck on stupid, stuck on evil, stuck in guilt tripping, etc. And if other people see you for who you are, like you're Medusa or something, they're turned to stone. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're a crazy witch. A witch is somebody who's a shrew who literally harasses people. So the story of Jacob Eri coming down from the sky, it can be viewed as a symbolic story of when the Jews came the Jews definitively established themselves within Biafra, that part of Niger, Ra-in, right? B of Ra, okay, Ba of Ra. And what happened was these slaves, you know, which is the popular story, they married their way into the royal family and into other families, and some of them made their own Jewish community with 30,000 Igbos, and they're not accepted by the Jewish community in the world at large, and because they have the identity of Jews, they are then the least of the brethren. They are the last who are the first in heaven. Many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. So the Eziniri, the leopard is perfected by the the Kwa language, hawk backwards. Remember the forward and backwards, God's plan in reverse, who did the language and why. Babylon to mix things up and confuse people, the wordplay, and so on. Okay, so you get the Kwa, Niger, Congo language. Another way to look at it is the hawk, Ra-in, Congo. No con whore, no con fu, no con artist. No imagination, no Saturn role reversal, but the pure martial arts spirit. Now, my philosophy doesn't automatically put the Igbos above everyone else. In fact, the Igbos who portray people like me are like Judas in the Bible. You'll be hard-pressed to find a character more despicable than Judas or Herod. And these were Jews, right? These were Jews who did the wrong thing. Like Jezebel, you know, just utter filth. So not all Igbos are good people. But when you get this royal family from Eri that mix the leopard with the hawk, certainly they are good people. And that goes back to moral relativism, relative, right? Versus it's relative, you know, wordplay. You know, the relative of someone good, you're raised by him, you have his genetics. And that goes back to why I always point out that my parents are doctors. My dad gave away millions in free service. He's being sabotaged to a large degree, so am I, and so on. And of course, leopard, surgeon, you know, leopard is the ritual word for the surgeon in the Angolan capoeira culture. And you can go on and on about Iri, you know, Eri, you know, the Rasta connections, Rastaff, Eri, and so on, intermediary and habituary. And there's so many connections, I don't know where to start. You know, to make a long story short, you look at the movie Shaka Zulu, for instance, where he says, you know, or the BBC series, he says the leopard's kingdom is of the earth, and on the earth he is the master. If the whites offer you wings, it's because they want to make you their victim. Well, there's a difference between white colonists with the eagle on the back of the bull, Apis, with the griffin with eagle traits, eagle head, eagle forepart, and you know, a lion for the rest of the body. This goes back to Zeus, Zeus, right? And the hawk offering you wings. The leopard with the hawk wings is it represents traversing the spiritual realm with grace in the spirit of the light, the true light, the sun temple. So at the end of the day, when one considers everything that I've accomplished and how no one has done what I've done, certainly I am who I say that I am. And certainly this has to be emphasized. Show me where you see people preaching in the way that I do. Show me where you see people teaching it in the way that I do. Show me where you see people giving my family the credit, much less giving me credit. You don't see it. This is a very key part. I become the missing link. I mean, it's really how it is. A prophet is not recognized in his own hometown. And when we live in an information age where everything's connected and people gossip and people backstab and sabotage, he ends up being not recognized in the whole world. And this is where we are now. So again, I had them hiding for years. You go back to my old 2012 songs, I start off by saying, hey, see me toe to toe. I eventually matured and realized the importance of sparring over fighting. And around 2012, May 4th, it was 2012, May 4th, I gave my sparring challenge, my first one. And then the second one, 2013, December 20th, and I was being fumed, drugged, dehydrated, sabotaged, kept from nutritious food, kept from water because they're drugging the water. I have these jugs all over the place. They have the residue of drugs in them. And, they started messing up my eyesight. Hand-eye coordination, mind-body-soul coordination. They interfere in every way possible. So at the end of the day, you must give me my credit. And I can show you, the continuity. I have a magazine from like 2000. I have a trophy from 97. In fact, I'm going to show you this little clip real quick. But by now, you should all see it my way.